Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this discussion that we're doing today. We're going to talk about business growth. I guess you can probably see from the headline is it kind of what stops business owners growing their business. But we're going to kind of talk to a few people who've kind of experienced or going through that experience at the moment to hopefully help with some hints and tips for anyone who's planning to do that or are doing that at the moment. As always with these videos, we are live on our various social media platforms. So if you do have any questions as we go through or any comments, please feel free to put them in. I do also appreciate a lot of people watch this back following the live video. So again, if you want to put comments in afterwards that you have or questions that you have for the guys, please do, and I'm sure we'll be happy to answer them afterwards. So like I said, any questions you have, please do ask us. Sorry. What I'm going to do first is just kind of introduce who we've got to speak about this today, and then we'll come back and kind of start with the questions. So I'm going to go around my screen. I'll start with you, Jag, if that's okay. If you can kind of just introduce yourself and just kind of explain maybe where you are in your business growth journey.
So I'm Jag. I run a digital marketing agency called Xpand. We've been going for 13 and a half years, since 2007. It's full service strategy, marketing, web design, branding, SEO, social media, all that kind of stuff. It's all about helping businesses grow. Where are we in our growth? That's a good question. We've had a fantastic year last year. We took on 2 new roles that have been newly created within the business. Potentially take on another person this year. But for us right now, in terms of our growth, it's all about efficiencies and process and just really refining what we're doing and just getting more efficient and really moving it forward in that way.
Thank you, Jag. Pete, we'll come to you next. Is that good?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Pete Evans. I'm the Managing Director of SalesStar in the UK. We are a sales transformation business, and we work with clients to help them grow sales, get a proper sales strategy in place, sales process, and help transform the key behaviours of salespeople. I had a business called Ventas Sales, and last year we became a partner of SalesStar, a global sales transformation business. So we're on a sort of high growth trajectory. We've got some challenging growing sales now. Our challenges, I think, are particularly around having the right people in our team to help us grow. There's some really exciting opportunities for our business, which I think you're aware of, Michael. So I think it's the challenge is how do you keep the culture that you're wanting to have as you scale the business.
Yeah, great point, Pete. And last but not least, Jem.
Hi, I'm Gemma. My business is So Contented. We help businesses communicate through written content. We do a lot around brand voice and content strategy, and we do a lot of the implementation as well. So creating website content and ongoing blog writing. We have gone through a massive growth phase in the last 12 months relative to the size of the business. So the business was set up with 2 of us, so Helen and I, business partners, and in the past 12 months we've taken on 3 people, so it's more than doubled the size of the team. It's been a real learning experience for us, and I think we are probably now, similar to what Jag has said, we're very much trying to focus on how we make that sustainable and how we make sure that our internal processes are supporting the growth as much as our manpower.
Thank you very much, Gemma. And I think it's important, like the question we're asking today about people growing their business. It's the kind of that starting to grow is probably the hardest part for many people. It's from going from 1 or 2 people to 5 is probably more difficult than maybe going from 50 to 100 people. And that's kind of the discussion probably going to have around today. So I'll ask a nice blunt question, I guess, which is the title I've put for this particular conversation. What stops business owners growing their business? And Pete, come to you first, actually, because you kind of touched on it a little bit. Well, what do you think it is?
I think the biggest inhibitor is actually the business owner. and the mindset of the business owner, because I think, you know, we probably all started off in our back bedroom as a sole operator, and you've got a lot of freedom. It has different challenges because when you sell, you've then got to deliver. And I think when you start bringing people on, it brings different challenges. And I think there can be the fear factor. Well, what happens if I get bigger? Because the bigger you get, the better you get, and you get some great case studies and testimonials. Suddenly you're sort of exposing yourself to a bigger world, and suddenly you become a smaller fish. Sorry, you're trying to get into a bigger pond as well. But so I think that one of the biggest things that gets in the way is your own mindset. And somebody once said to me, if you want to scale, you've got to get out of your own way. So I think that's one key thing, is your own mindset and your own set of beliefs. And I think the other thing which can really sort of get in your way, as you start to scale and you win orders, you've always got to be conscious of your cash runway. So you can bring in work, you've got bills to pay, you've got to be really mindful of your cash runway and keep an eye on the cash. That's a big thing as well that can inhibit growth. Well, I'm interested to hear what Jag and Gemma have got to say as well.
Great points. Yeah, Jag, what about yourself? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think mindset, exactly as Pete said. I think it is exactly that in my mind. You know, looking back at my own circumstances, until I was ready to say, right, I am going to grow now, and you have to be prepared to take the risk and kind of this risk averseness scale. And once you're taking that chance, it's really believing and seeing what the actual vision is of what it is that you want to do, and just getting that crisp clarity of it. Once you've got that, and taking that first step, as you said, is usually the hardest part. So yeah, it's completely the business owner. I believe it's that mindset of, you know, what is it that's holding you back? It's usually yourself, really. Once you open that up, I feel that anything's possible.
Absolutely. Gemma?
Yeah, I totally echo that sentiment. I think it's a fear of failure for a lot of people. I think it's taking the potential of what failure is and making it something massive in your own head that it's really never going to be. I think culturally we all struggle with the concept of failure. I think, you know, there are a lot of big businesses that we look at that really rap people on the knuckles that fail or that get things wrong. And I think that fear of failure creates an inactivity. I think that unwillingness to do something because you may get it wrong is far more damaging than just having to go and not doing the right thing. I think it keeps you stuck and still in the place that you're at because you're just not doing anything. I think another big factor as well is what growth means to people. And I think people immediately think of growth as being financial. And it's not. And sometimes growth is about, you know, as Jag was saying, about systems and processes and putting all that stuff in place behind the scenes. Sometimes your growth in a year is not about bringing on more people, and it's not about growing your revenue or your profit. It's about making that same amount of money again with a lot less effort, and getting those things right so that you're ready to make that next financial jump the following year.
Yeah. Michael, there's something I just wanted to add. And when Gemma was speaking about the fear of failure, I've got some scars in business, which are learnings where I haven't been successful. And I think for me, the more that I'm scaling this business and the more I talk to people, I realize that most business owners have got some scars and some things that didn't go according to plan, which they wish they could put right. And I think as as I've started to grow my business again, what I've realized is that those scars are important to my clients and to people around me. I've got a member of my team, Ian Bryan, and he was a client of mine, and he actually said, Pete, people respect you more for your scars than your wins. But I think even though you've got some battle scars, I think you come back to mindset. There is this fear of failure.
And you said it perfectly earlier, Pete, when you said, when you start to go and people start to become aware of you and you're suddenly more exposed and you're suddenly open to people challenging you and, you know, and calling you out on things publicly and disagreeing with the things that you say. And it's that acceptance of that's okay. Not everybody's for you. Not everybody's your audience. Not everybody has to like it. You know, that's the world. And that vulnerability, I think, is also something that puts people off. It puts people off from creating content and sharing that sort of thing, because they're fearful of other people weighing in on it and challenging them and them feeling like they've got something wrong.
Yeah.
I tend to find on that note, when I open myself up, you're absolutely right. You know, it's I can't remember exactly how it was worded, but, you know, rather than looking at it as failures, failure is a crucial part of success, is something that I firmly believe. And, you know, rather than looking at it as a failure, it's just another learning curve on getting to wherever it is you want to go. And even in my own consultation, I suppose we all work in, you could broadly cover, you know, consultation is a part of what we do. When I'm explaining things that we would do with clients, we have done with other case studies, it resonates with the prospects I'm speaking to. But when I talk about my own failures, I find that actually resonates that much more, where I said, I did this, I tried that, and I failed on that, but I actually did this. And it's that human connection, I think, it's when people recognize that there is vulnerability in other people as well.
Yeah, and I think that's
you can't get stuff right. You can't get stuff right without getting it wrong. I think, you know, that's how stuff gets better. That's how things improve, because somebody has come before you, or you've done it before you and made a mistake and learned something from it. You know, you get the result that you want or the lesson that you need. Yeah,
and I think Jag, just picking on the point you made about mistakes and how you can pass on the learning for those mistakes to your clients. I had a big learn about 2 years ago when I was pitching for a project for a large company, and I went to present to the European board. And the MD said, so I'd done a discovery, and the MD said, so tell me about your business. And the question I asked was, I said, so do you want the marketing spiel and stuff that's on my website, or do you want to know more about me? And he said, actually, I want to know about you. And it was the first time in a long time where I'd actually been really humble and said, well, this is my journey. And I was a bit fearful because it was potentially a big piece of work for us. And the MD turned around and said, do you know what, Pete? If our salespeople had 25% of your tenacity, you wouldn't be in the room now. And I remember getting on the train back from London and thinking, actually, I need to start using more of that and not be fearful of the past and the scars and the mistakes, because people really, Gemma, you said when people, not everybody's going to like what you do and who you are. But actually, what I found is that if you've got to match your values with your clients, that actually helps you grow your business, because there's a lot of people out there who are fearful of as well.
Absolutely. And by the way, Pete, you've got a nice comment from Sarah about your comment earlier about if you've got to scale, you've got to get out of your own way. She's a big fan of that comment by the sounds of it.
Yeah. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. You've kind of all touched to a degree there on the kind of word around risk. I guess generally for a lot of people, you go from an employed position to self-employed, and like we said earlier, starting up in your bedroom as a one-man band type business is the usual journey, and that is the first essentially risk that you take. But then the next risk, which is quite big, is this growth. So I'd kind of love to hear your thoughts on how you see risk and how it's kind of, I guess, been important in the journey you've come to so far. So I'll come to you, Gemma, first on that.
I knew you'd come to me first on that one, because I guess I am a natural risk taker, shall we say. I'm pretty comfortable with taking risks, and I think to some extent you need to be. I think we're not educated well about the world beyond, going to school, going to uni, getting a job. This is the path that you've chosen. This is how it will always be. And if you don't follow on this path, then something has gone wrong. I've got an engineering degree. I've been in banking, and now I've set up my own business. So I've not gone in a straight line to get where I am. And everything that we've done is, there's been an element of risk there. I think this sums it up perfectly, to be honest. And it's from a kid's film, so something about like a pirate film. But just bear with me; it's kind of sensible. But I think it sums it up pretty well in that the phrase was everything is possible until you stop to think about it. And I think it's this whole talking yourself into something and back out of it and then back into it again and overthinking a decision. And again, it comes back to getting things wrong. And I think sometimes you've just got to think, well, really, what's the worst that can happen here? And just go for it and improve things as you go along and change things as you go along. On the flip side, my business partner, Helen, I would say is naturally more risk averse than I am. And I think we have that nice balance there of, I'm constantly just trying to do really random, silly things that she's probably like, no, what do you think? And we have that nice happy medium. And to be fair, over the past 3 years of running the business, I think we have tempered each other as well. I think it's been a journey for both of us. But I am a big believer that risk has to happen and you have to embrace it because that's business. And if you don't take a risk, you may end up standing still forever.
Yeah, absolutely. So what about you, Jag? What's kind of how do you see risk?
I'm probably, I wouldn't say I'm really on the other end of the perspective from Gemma, but probably a little bit further away. I am quite a heavy thinker, sometimes an overthinker. And for my part, I do firmly believe in risk is something that should be calculated. Every decision you make in business, there is some kind of risk and some kind of downfall and some kind of positive in every kind of way. Calculate the risks before you take them. Have a look at what could go right, what could possibly go wrong. I firmly believe in always having a contingency as well, and that doesn't mean having a big document written out of every last plan, but just thinking, all right, well, what is the worst that could happen? And if that does happen, then okay, well, I will do this. But you're absolutely right, Gemma. Without taking the risks, then that is a fundamental part of being in business. You have to have a risk mindset. And if you sit still for too long, you're going to get left behind. There's always some kind of external forces, your competition or the technology changing, that's just going to leave you behind. So I think it's a very, very, very important thing to focus on.
It's interesting you say that, Jag, because probably me and you could sit there and think about stuff forever. I'm more like you, and may have been pushed over the years. Pete, what about yourself?
Yeah, I'm probably more like Gemma. I think big picture. I will take some risks. I think what I've learned as I've got older is to take some calculated risks. But I think just picking up on the point that Jag made is that if you don't take some risk in business, you'll stand still, and there'll be somebody who'll come along and actually take your market share, take your business. And I remember when I was talking to Paul O'Donoghue at SalesStar about setting up this joint venture in the UK. I'd just got back from New Zealand, and then we almost went into the first lockdown. And people, you get what I call naysayers. They're experts in everything because they can use Google. And suddenly they're being very critical. You're saying, "Oh, what you want to set up a business with a company the other side of the world? That's a huge risk. How are you going to trust them?" So I think what happens is sometimes we let other people's voices talk ourselves down to things that actually, when we step back and we think, "Okay, what is the risk?" And I think Gemma made a point earlier about systems and process, and sometimes to grow, it isn't just about growing more profit that year. It's actually, have we come out that 12-month in a better place? And so for me, I think actually you've got to take some risks, and I think you stop growing if you don't, as an individual, if you don't take some risk.
I totally agree with that. And to go back to Pete's point there as well, I think just because something is a big risk doesn't mean it's a bad decision. My world originally is finance, and to compare that, you're talking about investment, the higher the risk, the higher the reward. That's the way it is. If you invest in something that is riskier, there's the potential that you might lose it, but there's also the potential that you might get back 10 times what you would if you played it safe. So it doesn't mean it's a bad decision because it's a high risk. It means that, I guess Jag said it's a calculated decision. You make a decision on what can you afford to lose, and I'm not talking financially, but what can you afford to put at risk? And that's a kind of a difficult conversation to have with yourself, I think, because it's all relative. As you get older and you make more money than you did when you were young, thinking back to those days of like, God, how did I cope buying 7p super noodles from Asda when I was a student? But you did it, and it was fine, because it's all relative. And I think risk is very much the same. And if you think, in what are you willing to potentially put on the line? If you think, well, I might need to buy a smaller house, well, are you willing to do that?
Yeah, I think there's some
potential reward.
Yeah. I think there's something else around risk as well, and this is probably related to what the two of you do. And I talk to other business owners, and they say, "Oh, so what are you investing in marketing and lead generation?" And I think, Gemma, we've been running some LinkedIn adverts to generate leads, and that's we're getting a great return on investment. And I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they said, "Yeah, but did you not think when you started doing that, that's a huge risk? What if it hadn't worked?" And I was thinking, well, to that individual, you've not got a growth mindset. So everything you spend money on in a business carries some risk. But what I view is that, well, if we don't do it and we don't invest in that particular area or in marketing, what's the worst thing that can happen? We're not going to know. We're not going to learn unless we actually try something.
Yeah, and you'll never know. You'll never know until you've tried it. Again, as long as you've narrowed it down, as long as it isn't a shotgun approach, and you've narrowed it down to that's where your audience are. There's a learning curve in it, and even if it doesn't work the first time round, to give up on it straight away without looking at all the factors, that's probably a really big mistake for people to make as well.
Definitely.
Yeah, and doing nothing is always a risk. Choosing to not do anything, that's a really big risk.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's probably the worst risk.
Yeah.
We've had a good comment from Jeff Dunn, actually, which actually sums up the biggest learn I've had in business really, really well, and about launching products at around, say, 80% complete and then refine it as you go along. And if you don't, you miss the opportunity. I would openly admit that kind of the point that Jag made earlier. I would previously be the person who would overthink every single scenario to the nth degree. And then there's nothing wrong with scenario planning, but also there's a point where you've got to just go for it, quite frankly, isn't there? And it's probably definitely the thing I've learned most in the last few years. So I'd also like to kind of ask a little bit about the why. So why do you do what you do, and why have you wanted to grow it to where you are now, and obviously where you plan to get it to? Pete, what's your...
Well, I funny enough, and we've been doing some work with some of our clients on this, but for me, I think as the business owner, you've got to have a purpose. And I think that purpose has got to be much deeper than just, well, I want to make loads of money. And for me, I look at my, one of the things I talk about is that I want to have a positive impact on everybody that I come into contact with, whether that's making them smile, whether that's helping them get more sales. But from a business perspective, it's about helping businesses understand what great really looks like in the sales arena, whether they're a business that's a startup or they're in the global space. And we've got a wide spectrum of clients. So I think there's a personal thing of, actually for me, I came from a background where if I went back to school, my teacher would probably say he'd never be successful at selling. And so I have this big thing about helping sales become a true profession. And that's part of it. So I think you've got to have a deeper purpose about what you want to do as a business. And then from the other business perspective, it's growing something and being, having that personal pride, saying, I was a key part of that business's growth. But I think for me, it's about creating wealth for others in the business. I've got some great people in my team, some great coaches, and helping inspire them, and helping them create the sort of lifestyle they want as well. So it's deeper than just money. It's got to be.
Absolutely. What about you, Jag? Why do you do what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. As Pete just said, it really is deeper than just money. And we frequently have discovery sessions with clients, getting to the nub of, you know, what their sense of purpose is, what is their why, and it kind of build everything up from there. And it's so unbelievably important. It took me quite a while to figure out what my sense of purpose was. I just knew I wanted to be in business, so I did it, and then I really figured it out afterwards. And for me, it comes down to being able to support people. What we do as an agency is help other businesses grow. Off the back of helping them grow and become profitable, they will employ people. Off the back of employing people, you know, they're then supporting their own little economy. You know, these people can then pay their mortgages and pay for the kids to go to football and stuff like that. And likewise within my own team, you know, I firmly believe in the phrase, I want to have make my mark on the world. Even if it's my world is only 3 people, in some way, shape or form. You know, we had an apprentice, one of my very first employees that joined me in 2012. He stayed with us for 5 years. He's now set up his own business, and I feel really happy that I was able to play a part in his journey. If we never meet again, that's something that laid the foundation, and there's a real pride in that's supported him in how he's moving forward, and he's doing well. So it's really being able to, you know, for me, it's to make my mark on the world and to be able to help other people around me grow in a positive way.
Brilliant. Gemma?
I feel really lucky to do what I do, actually. I think a lot of business owners will set up a business doing something because it's the thing that they've always done. It would have been very easy for me to leave finance and set up in something finance related. You know, I'm a qualified mortgage advisor. I could have gone into that, or I could have become a financial advisor. But I've started a business doing something that I really love doing, which I think always helps. And I think from a purpose perspective, I mean, this is going to sound really dramatic in comparison to what you guys have said, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think there's a real power in words and a real responsibility, therefore, in words. I think the world that we have now, I once heard someone describe it and say, you know, now everyone's a publisher, because we all have a platform somewhere to put our words out into the world. And for me, that's a big deal. That's how our stories have been carried throughout history. It's been done in words. So that really forms part of our purpose of helping people to use words well and to use words wisely. And it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. You know, it's a really big deal. I think it's finding that voice that's yours and that's true to you. And that's a real big part of our purpose as well. From a growth perspective, I think the reason that we want to grow is not only so that we can help more businesses to do that, but because it also gives me and Helen as business owners the opportunity to focus on the parts of the business that we excel at. When you run a business and it's just you are wearing all the hats, you're doing all the things, and there's parts of it that you won't love and that are a bit tedious to you. So by bringing other people on board, we've got people now that suit doing all those things that maybe didn't suit me quite so much, and maybe didn't suit Helen quite so much. And it's bringing that diversity into the team of different people who can support the business to get all those functions done, and to give Helen and I the opportunity to do the parts of the business that we really love doing. Like for me, a big part of that is speaking to clients and doing like the consultation type things. And having a team behind me gives me the opportunity to do that.
That's great. Good answer, Jan. So we had a really good question in actually, which was going to be my final question, but I'll move it forward a little bit. What is the one major learning that the people have had from, or would offer advice to others? So, kind of the context I was going to put it in is if you've got someone watching who's maybe started a business recently or in the last few years, you know, they've established themselves now, they're kind of in a nice position and they're wanting to take that next step. They want to go in from them to potentially 5 people over the next 18 months, 5 years, whatever it might be. What kind of, from your experiences so far, what one thing would you tell them? I'll come to Jag first, if that's all right.
I think the biggest one I would say is believe in yourself. When you are in business, as Pete mentioned, all these naysayers, you're going to be surrounded by people that are going to give you all kinds of opinions. You're going to see people who you compete with or who you perceive to be doing better than you. And you're going to think, oh my God, look at what am I doing here? Look how good they are. You have to really dig deep and believe in yourself. And I firmly believe that you will, if you have that, then there's a resilience that you will find in yourself. I think we've all found a resilience in ourselves in the last 12 months with everything that's happened with lockdown and whatnot. And once you've got that gives the foundation of the confidence that you need to move forward and just have that crisp vision in your mind and believe in yourself. And obviously along the way, everything we've spoken about, calculating risk and just knowing what your why is and what your competition are doing. But it's just about self-belief. I think a huge part of it is self-belief. And I did have moments a few years in where I just thought, forget it, I'm going to pack it in. And it was almost like, I clearly remember it actually. I thought, I don't think I can do this. And I went through this little lull within about a 10-minute thought process and thought, actually, hang on a minute, I can do this. I do it for other companies. And it was a bit of a fist in the air, X Factor moment. I remember it so clearly. And, when you do, business ownership is a real roller coaster of emotions. But I always think back to that one moment thinking, hang on, from that moment, within 6 months, I was paying, and the company was growing. 6 months later, I had 4 of us rather than just myself. So even yourself, that is kind of the key thing I would say.
I think that's brilliant advice, Jag, and I think it's that kind of imposter syndrome I think you hear about, do you? That I think probably it wouldn't be human to not have that thought, whether it's for 5-10 minutes or for weeks on end. I think that's pretty normal for most people. So kind of, I guess, get through that is the kind of key. It's okay to think like that as long as you can kind of get that. Yes, thank you. Great answer, Jag. What about from you, Pete?
I mean, just sort of building on what Jag mentioned there, and I think we all, as business owners, we all go through those moments of insecurity and thinking, okay, I could just sort of close this down and go and work from a back bedroom again or the dining room table. Wouldn't life be easier? But I think one of my learns, particularly over the last few years, is surround yourself with people, great people who've been there, done it. Also, get some people in your network who have got some scars, because you can really learn from them. And I think those days when perhaps you are feeling a bit down at your business, go and do a sense check with people in your network. Make sure that you have some great people to advise you as well. And I think coming back to a point Gemma made, the sooner you can get other people to do the bits of the business that you don't enjoy, and you can afford to outsource stuff or employ people to do things, that is a real sort of step forward, and that's a journey. I know you're going on, Gemma, no doubt you've been through, Jag, and I'm going through as well, where you can actually operate, in the space where you really shine. That's when your business truly grows. And I think that's because when you start out, you're doing everything. You're doing the photocopying, you're making the coffee, you're getting you're doing the accounts, you're doing the prospecting, the new business, you're delivering. Actually, now just come to say, I don't want to go back to those days. Yeah. So there's pros and cons of being the business owner, but I think just surround yourself with some great people.
Fantastic advice, Pete. Gemma.
Totally agree with what Jag and Peter both said. Don't believe in yourself, but don't do it alone. Find other people that believe in you as well. This may be a little controversial, but having a business partner is probably the best thing I've ever done. Now, I know there are a lot of people that have had not great experiences with business partners, but I think I have the right person by my side to do this, to be on this journey. And I know when I listen to my other friends and colleagues that run businesses and they do it by themselves, it makes me really appreciate how lucky I am to have Helen, my other half of business, on this journey with me. And the things that we both, as two different human beings, bring to the table, and the difference that has made to the business and the trajectory of the business and the things that we've done and the choices that we've made. individually, we both would have probably made completely different choices to the ones that we have, and together I think we've made completely the right choices for So Contented. So if you've not started a business yet, or if you're kind of wondering where to go, for me, explore the opportunities and possibilities of having a business partner, but of making sure that it's the right person. I think the other thing as well, coming from a finance background, and also, like, I know, you know, Mike, you're the same, and seeing why businesses fail. Like Pete touched earlier on cash flow, but I think the other major thing is just pure grit. It's just knowing that some months are going to be terrible, and that's okay. We're very much told, you go, you educate yourself, you get a job, you get the best jobs are the ones that will pay you that set amount every single month, and you know how much money you got coming in, and that's fine, and that's okay. That's not how it is when you're running a business. You'll have, you know, 8 amazing months, a couple of average ones, and 2 really terrible ones, and that's fine. And I think it's having that grit and determination to not focus on the times where you had that bad month, when you didn't win that client, and to focus on all the stuff that you did do, all the successes, all the wins. And Pete said earlier, looking at the bigger picture, because the bigger picture when you're in a business is what counts. It's all around, you know, what are you bringing in over the course of a year, and how you plan and adapt the way that you live your life around not having a set monthly income, and that not having a set monthly income and earning the exact same amount of money every month is okay. It's not a problem. It doesn't mean that something is going wrong. It actually probably means something's going pretty right, because that's business.
Can I add something to what Gemma's just said as well, Michael? Gemma used the word, the grit factor. I think when you're running a business, that is so important. And actually, recently, one of my team said to me, he said, Pete, you know, there's something about you. You're a scrapper. And I think to be successful in business, I think you've got to be a bit of a scrapper, because being a scrapper means you've got some grit, because you've got to truly want it. And actually, so success is not a straight line. There's some real ups and downs. You know, I saw a quote recently where you said, "There's no lift to success. You've actually got to climb. You've actually got to climb the stairs every day."
I think it's interesting how you've all obviously there's some similarities in the way you've answered all the questions, but also some differences. So it kind of shows for a start, it's great that there's no one way. There's different ways, and it all suits different people in different scenarios. And it's that kind of difference for everyone. It is really important. There's no right way of doing this. I think that's really important. And I'm going to ask another question, which I know will get a different answer from people. Actually, it's going to be the last question, I promise you, is kind of briefly touched around strategy and planning. How important is it when you're growing a business? And I'm going to come to Gemma first, and I think Pete and Jag know why I'm doing that, so I'm going to go to Gemma first.
Okay, so I know why you come to me first. Much like I am a natural risk taker, what I am not is a natural planner. I find the element of business, of being organized and having a strategy, and that's not my natural strength. Like, I find that difficult for myself. I can look at other people's businesses, weirdly enough, and I think I'm better at looking at that from a strategic position than I am my own. If I'm completely honest, I think a lot of our business growth has happened, I don't want to do a disservice to say it by accident, but there hasn't been a set plan to this point. I think having a plan is important, and I think a lot of people need a plan. However, I also think flexibility is really important. I think sometimes people will look at a plan, or they will have a goal, and actually it can be a little bit off-putting to them to see that, oh, I've got this target and I've not made it. And again, it's coming back to Pete talking about bigger picture stuff. A lot of businesses will set a 12-month goal, but actually, should you be setting a 3-year goal? And would you just divide a 3-year goal by 3 to get your 12-month goal? Probably not, because as Pete said, again, success is not a straight line. So I think to a certain point, I think you can probably get away with not having a firm strategy. I think for Helen and I, we've always known where we were going. We've possibly not known how we were going to get there and have played it by ear quite a lot. It does mean I think we've made some reactive decisions that we probably would have been better making from a proactive position. We brought Kim on board in November, and Kim probably really needed to be joining the team 2 or 3 months before then. You know, we were kind of in that position where we probably need, but we'd kind of waited and we were waiting to see what was happening with, you know, the coronavirus situation and all that stuff. So we waited longer than we should. And again, that's probably partly to do with not having that firm strategy laid out and written down.
But
I do think it's important.
Learn that will help you in the future.
I'd like to say yes, because while it wasn't to strategy and while we were reactive, it was a risk that paid off. Because if we had hired 2 or 3 months sooner than we had, we wouldn't have hired Kim because Kim was still studying at that point. So we probably wouldn't have ended up with her on the team. And actually, she's completely a perfect fit and a very talented writer, and is exactly what we needed to join the team at the time that she did. So it's, you know, I'm not sure that I've learned a lesson as such. But I think you can get places without a firm strategy. I think there's only so far that you will get without a firm strategy. And we are now at that point where we are putting those things in place, because it's now no longer just about Helen and I. We've got 3 other people that are on the team that, you know, that we're responsible for, and, you know, we want them to be part of our future. So we need to plan for how that's going to look. Because it's no longer just about Helen and I making those decisions together. We have other people to consider. So it's a process that we are going through of trying to sort everything out in our business in terms of what happens at the back end and the workflows and what's happening in the future, and trying to come up with the strategy that's going to take us forward. So yeah, I think you can get to a decent point without a firm strategy. I don't think you can get beyond a certain point without a good strategy. But I still maintain that wherever you are in your business, that you need to have some flexibility to readdress and change that strategy, that it shouldn't be set in stone, that it can be something that you address and look at again. It's a working document. It's not always, oh yeah, thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.
Sarah does our HR, and Sarah is now helping us with our people planning as well. So that's probably music to Sarah's ears to hear that we're starting to put firmer things in place from a strategy perspective. So yeah, I think strategy important, but I think flexibility is important as well, and not seeing that strategy as this is it now, we've said this and we can't change it and we have to get here come hell or high water, or we've failed.
Absolutely. So going on what you were saying earlier, Jag, how important strategy to you?
Can I just say some of the things you just said, Gemma, were giving me chest pains. It's yeah, I'm probably again a little bit on the other end of the perspective. As a marketing strategist, I'm probably a little bit biased in that. Yeah, I firmly believe there needs to be something in place. You know, there's the saying, you know, a goal without a plan is just a daydream, and there is a bit of an element of that. You know, yeah, you know, you may not necessarily know. You know, how you're going to get there. And you know, you made a point, Gemma, about saying you feel that you got very lucky, but I would kind of say the opposite. You're obviously in the right place at the right time and working hard and being in the right place at the right time, which is, you know, I think the saying is, if you work hard, you'll get lucky. Yeah, I absolutely believe it's really important. And you know, in the early days, I had a bit of an idea, and like you said, Gemma, you can get by to a certain stage without having a strategy in place, but having, you know, sometimes a strategy is perceived as this big giant document and all this kind of detail and forecasting and planning and research. Even if something is physically written down, at the very least on an A4 sheet of where you want to go and what your vision is and who your competition are and the key things you want to do, and you revisit it every now and again, at the very least, that's a really important thing. And again, you made a great point, Gemma, about, you know, we create strategies for clients, and I frequently say, I don't think I've ever had one strategy that has worked exactly as we've outlined, because no business operates in a vacuum environment. There is always some kind of external force that's going to cause you to have to change that. So that flexibility is absolutely, it's so important. Just because you've put it down, it doesn't mean you have to stick to it. It means that you've got a bit of a plan and you come back and review it, and you've actually assessed all the risks and the threats and the other possibilities of things that can happen that help you move forward. So yeah, I'm a firm believer in having a strategy in place, in case that didn't come across.
Thank you, Jag. What about you, Pete? How important is it to you?
Yeah, I think I'd probably sort of somewhere in the middle. I think when you start off, I think you can have a dream and a vision, and I think your focus tends to be in those early days or months or even years of starting your business. Right, we'll just focus on getting some clients, winning some work, delivering that work, and then when you sort of think, oh, we're doing reasonably well now, I think if you truly want to scale, you've got to have a plan and you've got to have a strategy. And it's amazing. Obviously, Jag, you're in the sort of the marketing space, and you're talking about marketing strategy. We're talking about sales strategy and a sales plan. And it's amazing how many business owners will say, well, I want to go from 500,000 to 1 million, and I'm just going to do it and say, well, how are you going to plan to, how are you going to execute that plan? How are you going to execute your dream? So I think to really scale, you need a marketing plan, a business plan, and a sales strategy, because you've got to decide how to execute. But I do agree that it's got to be flexible because opportunities come up. I think the other thing that you really need to do is be constantly revisiting it. So one thing we do with our clients is we have a quarterly review of their sales strategy and their sales process and their sales plan, because things are just changing so quickly in the world of business at the moment. If you don't review it, it's not going to be up to date and it's not going to be fit for purpose. And I think a lot of people in business, they get a plan together, but they never review it. And I think the other thing, just coming back to what Gemma said about, bringing people into the business. Sarah mentioned a comment about having, plans for people. When you plan out your sales growth and your business growth, then you can start to decide, okay, do we need to start hiring people now, bringing people on board? So what I do with our plan is I can see 2 or 3 months ahead and think, okay, well, I'm probably going to, if we hit those numbers, I'm probably going to need to start bringing some new coaches on board to help us deliver. So I need to start talking to people now. So I think actually a lot of people see the planning phase as a bit boring, but actually I think when you look at it, it gets you really excited as well about your future. You
I think you're right.
You can't grow a business without a plan.
I think you're right where you said, it's hard in the beginning because, and strangely enough, I was talking with a friend of mine who's a brand consultant about this the other day, and around how when you start your business, you don't know who you are just trying to, I think sometimes people worry too much about having a plan at that stage, and I don't think you need one. I think you just need to get out there in the world and start trying to work with people, to offer the services that you have, and see what you do and see what you're good at, and see how the land lies, and because your business will evolve. Our evolution over the past 3 years has been massive. I think one of the things that gave us some real clarity actually was we did some work with Brenda Etchells. She sat down with us and we did a strategy canvas, and it was just like an A3 piece of paper, and it was just very simply kind of mapped out where we saw ourselves in 3 years' time, and part of that was around your people and what people would you bring in, and that was a really big help when we then went to hire, to figure out who we needed at that point. That brought some real clarity to that for us. So I think I'm not sure I would go as far as to say that we had a strategy, but we had that end goal in mind of how we wanted our business to look, and we kind of made it work with the actions that we took to get us there. So I think that was something that had that piece of work around how we wanted things to look did definitely make a difference to the decisions that we made when we started bringing people in and experiencing that growth.
I do agree with that point, Gemma, about when you're starting out, there is a very big hang up on, I did this, you know, oh, I must have a plan, I must have this written down. But I started and I always felt bad that I didn't have this plan in place. And you have to find your feet, that evolution. I mean, I can probably pin it down to maybe about 4 different variants of Xpand in the way that we've grown. So I do very much agree with that point, in terms of that is one of the things I think that can sometimes stop people from starting.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Yeah. Thank you very much, Dave. Thank you, guys. There's some great answers there, and hopefully some real good help for some people. So finally, a couple of comments. Simon Reed has agreed with you, Jag, about plans and processes are key. Maybe it's a digital marketing thing for you guys. You mentioned about how you can measure it. So yeah, thank you very much, Simon. Yeah, again, just thank you very much, guys, for that conversation. Hopefully people who've watched this have found it really useful. Again, like I mentioned right at the start, I appreciate that some people do watch this after the event. So if you do have any questions for anyone specifically, or just generally, please feel free to put it on the post that you're seeing, or just contact us at Northern Affinity. Jag, Pete, and Gemma all featured on Northern Affinity's website, so you can find them on there and all their contact details and things like that, so you can find out about them, or just contact us directly if you want to know a little bit more about what they do. Sorry. So yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and thank you to everyone who's been watching.